Deck Building. I'm your host, Demo, and this is my Alrund deck tech, or should I say Alrund and Hakka deck tech, because really these modal commanders are sort of both and or either. So this is my 12th deck tech from Kaldheim. I just counted and I didn't realize that I had made so many already. So this will be my last Kaldheim deck tech, at least for now. I mean, obviously I can revisit it later, but there are a lot of other decks I want to make. I got so many ideas, even with the Kaldheim spoilers. I've been making other new decks that have nothing to do with Kaldheim because I've always got lots of ideas. And there's a lot of really neat decks that I want to start making and putting on this channel that people will probably be interested in. So this will be the last one from Kaldheim. You know, when I saw Alrund, I wasn't super impressed by him. You know, I don't think anyone is. But when I was looking at Alrund, I noticed two things. The first thing I noticed is, like with all MDFC commanders, you really don't have to play both sides. You can just concentrate on the one side. So Redain, for example, I just did my Redain deck tech, and you can, you know, if you want, you just pick one side and build the deck around that one side and completely forget about the other side. You don't really need it at all. And that's kind of what I did here. I really wasn't impressed with the Alrund side at all. But the Hakka side I thought was very interesting, right? A 2/3 flyer for 2. Whenever he deals combat damage, you return him to your hand and then scry 2. I really liked it. It's very unique. Definitely no commander that does anything like that. And I thought that was worth building a deck around. The other thing I noticed when I was looking at him is any of these MDFC commanders, if they have, or any of the MDFC cards, period, if they have a creature on one side and a permanent of some kind on the other side, and the front side is more expensive, then you can blink them, okay? And when they come back into play, they'll be on the front side, right? So for example, with Alrund, he is, 5 mana on the front and 2 mana on the back. So we can play the Hakka side, and if we want the Alrund side, we can just cast Teferi's Time Twist, and it will exile our Hakka, and when it comes back into play, it'll be on the front side, it'll be on the Alrund side. And that's kind of neat, and I haven't looked at all the MDFC commanders or MDFC cards in general where you can do that. Typically, there has to be a creature because a lot of the blink effects are only for creatures. But Teferi's Time Twist, there's a few cards like this that will exile permanents. Flicker Wisp is another one that will do it. So really with this deck, I think we'll probably not ever cast Alrund. I don't think we're ever going to cast Alrund, especially not from the command zone. If anything, we'll maybe cast them from our hand after Hakka's been bounced back to our hand. Maybe. But mostly we're just going to be playing Hakka and then playing it again and playing it again. And then if at some point we want to blink it, Teferi's Time Twist and put, say we got 8-10 cards in our hand and we want a big beater, we can do that at some point if we want to. So Hakka has some very unique qualities, and the plan started to formulate in my head a little bit. I mean, the thing that got me excited about this deck was Elegith, right? Somebody else had pointed this out, how, with Elegith, Hakka's great because that scry 2 now becomes a draw 2. That's not enough to build a deck around, I don't think. However, that is really good. The fact that we can just attack with Hakka and draw 2 cards is amazing. So obviously Elegith's going to be in this deck. I even put Ethereal Usher in the deck because I love Transmute. It's super underrated, and it's just great for tutoring for any very specific card that you really want. So I put Ethereal Usher in the deck just so we can go get Elegith. Another card that I thought of right away was Tome of Legends. Whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on it. So we're going to be doing that every turn. Every turn, we're going to be casting Hakka or attacking with Hakka, maybe sometimes twice in a turn. So we can just pay 1 to remove a page counter and draw a card. So we're just going to be paying 1 to draw a card with this every turn. This card is fantastic in this deck. And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, we want to be drawing cards a lot. So Loyal Drake also, at the beginning of your combat, if you control your commander, which we will always, right? We'll always be controlling our commander, almost always. But I was mostly looking at things like, how can we benefit from the fact that we're casting our commander all the time and attacking with our commander all the time? Kindred Discovery, you'd think this would be obviously in a tribal deck, and I definitely would put this in any blue tribal deck because it's incredible. But just naming bird with this, Okay, because Hakka is a bird. Every single time we cast our Hakka or every time we attack with our Hakka, we draw a card again. It's going to be like Toma Legends that way, where we're drawing a card every single turn with it because we are casting or attacking with Hakka every single turn. So just with Hakka and no other birds in the deck, I think this is actually going to be really good. And then I thought, okay, well, how can we beef up Hakka? You know, right away you think of equipments, right? And Lightning Greaves obviously is going to be good in this deck because then we can attack right away. So that's going to be awesome. And it has an equip cost of 0, right? We don't want anything that's going to have a really high equip cost. Hero's Blade is going to be fantastic because it's going to attach itself. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you just attach it. So our Hakka now becomes a 5/5. That's pretty good. So you just play it for 2 mana, it becomes a 5/5 flyer. That's fantastic. Champion's Helm is really good. It's going to turn our Hakka into a 4/5 and give it hexproof. And it only equips for 1. Like 1 mana, we can live with that. So that's definitely going in here. Grafted War Gear. This is an interesting one. Grafted War Gear, again, is going to make our Hakka into a 5/5. We equip it for 0. So every single turn when we're casting our Hakka, we can just equip this right away. Or equip it right before we attack is probably what we're going to want to do. But then, of course, when it becomes unattached from a permanent, you sacrifice that permanent. So what's going to happen is we're going to attack with our Hakka. It's going to connect. That trigger is going to go on the stack of returning it to our hand. Then we're going to return it to our hand and scry 2. Then Grafted War Gear is going to go, uh-oh, you became attached from a permanent, so you sacrifice that permanent. But guess what? It's in our hand, so we can't sacrifice it. So that downside is never going to be a thing for us. We're never going to have to worry about that. It's just a free equip, put on our Hakka, turn it into a 5/5. I think that just works great. So stuff like that, that's reasons why I build a deck like this, because of little interactions like that I think make it really, really fun and interesting. One thing we want to be doing for sure is looking at the top of our deck. We want to be doing that when Alrund is in play, and also even when Hakka is in play. We are going to be scrying a lot, so even when we're just doing our thing with Hakka, we're always going to be looking at the top of our library because we're going to be scrying lots. You know, I thought Miracle, right? Temporal Mastery and Devastation Tide, you know, we can set these up to be our first draw. I also have Arbiter of the Ideal and Primordial Mist. These guys are both great. Arbiter of the Ideal is one of those cards that I've been wanting to find a place for a while. I think it works here. You're basically just putting stuff into play for free. That's fantastic. We're going to attack with our Arbiter of Ideal and our Hakka. Our Hakka will connect. We will scry 2, and we will make sure there's some big thing on top, because on our next turn, Arbiter will become untapped, and whatever that card is on top is going to go directly into play, right? And Primordial Mist, same thing, right? This we're going to do at the beginning of our end step rather than waiting until our next turn. And so what we want to do with this, I mean, you can do a couple of things with this. This is a very interesting card. So what you can do with this is just say, okay, I'm going to put a creature, right? Because what you can do is if you manifest a creature, you can always just pay its casting cost to flip it over. But that second ability, exile a face down permanent you control face up, you may play that card this turn. We can put a counter spell like a Swan Song, and then we can exile it. We can use that second ability if we want. If someone casts a board wipe, let's say, that we don't like, we can exile the Swan Song. Remember, it's a 2/2 face down creature. We'll exile it and then we can cast it. You know, when you're looking at the top of your deck and you know what you're manifesting, I think that's just fantastic. Also, Druidic Satchel, just a great card if you're looking at the top card of your library all the time. I also put this in my Cosima deck just because it can get you extra land drops, which is great in any deck, you know, mono blue or any deck that isn't green, essentially, right? And of course, once Alrund's in play, we really want to be looking at the top of our library all the time. His second ability, I really didn't concentrate on the second ability that much. This idea that you choose a card type and you look at the top 2 cards and put, you know, so you could build your deck around that idea of, I'm going to make sure there's 2 instants on top of my deck or 2 lands on top of my deck. So you're getting those 2 cards in your hand. I didn't go that route. I think it's good enough just to know what's on top of your library so that you can get, you basically just get a free draw, right? Essentially, that's all I'm going for, is a free draw with Alrund. So Future Sight, what else needs to be said? You know what's on top of your library all the time. So whenever it comes to your end step, you just name that card and you get it in, you draw it for free, right? Precognition Field, same thing. You know, you're always going to know what's on top of your library, so you can just name whatever's on top of your library, you just name that card type and it goes into your hand. And both of those cards we can use to cast stuff off the top of our library as well. Since it's Divining Top, obviously is going to be fantastic in this deck. This is the one card where we can actually set up the top of our library and possibly get even 2 cards off of it. And like I said, we already have those miracle cards and other stuff that are going to benefit us from, setting up the top of our library. And then I have Frostaugur. This is a new one. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it in your hand. So essentially it's a scrying sheets, right? Which we also have in this deck. I went that route mostly because of this card and one other. I thought, why not go snow and we'll just put snow lands in the deck, and we have a couple other snow cards. It's not really a snow deck. And obviously Alrund and Hakka don't care about snow at all, but it works. If we have all of our islands are snow islands and this is just 1 snow mana, why not do it, right? And then I have Merit Lage's Slumber. This is the other reason why I decided to go snow with this deck. First of all, it's going to allow us to be scrying all the time, which we want, right? We want to be doing that. Again, if Elegith is in play, that's going to be fantastic because every time we play a land, we're going to be drawing a card. When it enters the battlefield, it or any other snow permanent enters the battlefield, we get to scry 1, which is great for us. And then, at the beginning of our upkeep, if we control 10 or more snow permanents, we get that Merit Lage token, which can, help to just close out the game. So that's pretty fantastic. Obviously, I have Mystic Reflection. I have Saw It Coming. These blue, especially, I think blue and white really made out like bandits with the Foretell cards. The blue ones and the white ones are really good. I mean, Alrund does care about cards in Foretell, so that does affect us a little bit. But they're just great cards. I would put them in here anyway. Raven Form, same thing. Just a fantastic card that you're going to put in any mono blue deck regardless. Just so happens that it has Foretell. We also have Ivory Tower because, we're going to have a big hand, right? So now I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we have a big hand. Ivory Tower is just going to gain us life, which is something you wouldn't think of in a mono blue deck, but we're going to be attacking a lot. So we want to, there's a chance we're going to be getting hit a lot as well. We're not going to have a lot of blockers. So gaining life is going to be a good thing. Nezahal, our commander doesn't have, the Alrund, neither side has the you have no maximum hand size sort of thing, right? So it's good to have a couple of cards in here that have that. I also have Thought Vessel, obviously, for that reason. I also have Seagate Restoration. Now we get into the situation where we're going to have, so let's say we have 7 cards in hand, draw 7 more cards. So now our Alrund is going to be a 14/14. He's going to be huge. And we have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, which is also going to be really good. And then I threw Inga Runais in here. I just thought, why not? When I first saw Inga, I thought, man, that'd be an interesting commander to make a deck around, but I don't know. It's really challenging. Maybe I'll get back to it someday, but I already did a little bit of research, and it's really tough to actually make a good deck with Inga. Those abilities are just, have nothing to do with each other, really, and killing creatures in blue is not always the easiest thing, but works good in this deck. We do want to scry, right? We also do have some blink effects, so don't forget about that. And then I just like the, I consider it to be sort of board wipe protection where, if somebody board wipes, we're going to get draw 3 cards out of it. So it has the card drawing, which works in this deck. It has the scrying, which works in this deck, so I put it in there. That's mostly the deck. Like what we want to be doing is playing Hakka for, probably the first long while. I mean, we might not play Alrund at all. You could just play Hakka. If everything's going great and we have our grafted war gear out and we have our heroes blade out, I mean, heck, if Hakka has both of those on there, that's an 8/7. 8/7 flyer. That's 3 attacks, your opponent's dead, right? If we have our Elegith out, we don't want Alrund at all. We just want to attack with Hakka because that scry 2 is going to be draw 2 cards, right? So it's going to depend on which way we go. When I first spoiled Alrund, I wasn't super impressed with him. But what I did like about it is that ability to, we can attack with Hakka, return it to our hand, and then choose to play the other side if we want. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my Alrund and Hakka deck tech. That's pretty much it for Kaldheim, for me, for now. And that's it for today. So thanks for tuning in.